Hi there, this is Douglas Robinson with DefEdit Software LLC, and in this video I wanted to go over how I've configured my virtual machine as a dev environment, what tools I use, and how they've helped me out while I've been working on a virtual machine, so that if you're working on your own or setting up your own dev environment, you might have a framework to start from, or you might have some recommendations to take from this video that might help you out in the future. So first thing I want to talk about is, an Office application. Maybe not necessarily Microsoft Office, but there's a couple of other Office suites out there. And for a virtual machine, I wanted something that was fairly light, that didn't take up a lot of space. And what I've settled on over time is LibreOffice, which is a fully featured Office suite. So it has it has Word documents, I think databases, spreadsheets. So it's a fully featured Office suite. And the thing that I like about it most is just that I can open something up and it's really quick. It's just so fast opening stuff up. My main concern with Microsoft Office is it takes up a lot of space, it eats up RAM, and it takes a while to open documents, and it has a lot of features that I may not necessarily need. Whereas if I open up LibreOffice, it uses 100 megabytes of memory, and my experience with it has been spectacular. It's always had a very consistent feel. So on all of my VMs, especially if you don't want to pay for an Office suite, this is a fantastic option that I've been using for a little while now, and I really enjoy it. And I put it on every dev VM that I work with. I don't have that many right now, but over the years I've put in quite a few that I've just installed LibreOffice on. So if I need to work with a CSV, because almost any Cherwell environment you work with, at some point you'll be working on a CSV, and if you have to copy it out to open it up in Microsoft Excel, that gets tedious after a while. And if you install Microsoft Excel onto your VM, you're compromising the amount of free space you have on your VM. Mine, for example, is only a 50 gig disk, which is pretty generous at that. You don't want to be loading up your VM with a ton of different programs and stuff. So I like LibreOffice as a nice lightweight tool. Next, I'm going to move on to email. Now, you don't necessarily need an email client on your VM. I kind of like it though. So most of the work that I do with Cherwell, I'm doing in a virtual machine. I'm trying to keep everything that I'm doing relevant to this work on this virtual machine. And, on the computer that I'm hosting this VM on, I don't actually check the email unless I'm actually in this VM. So I've installed an email client on here, and I did a little bit of searching for this one because I've used Thunderbird in the past, and I don't like the way that Thunderbird uses resources on a computer and the way that it syncs. And I've seen a lot of people that really enjoy it, and I like the value of it, but I stumbled upon something called EM Client, and I really like EM Client. This it only uses 300 megabytes of disk space installed. It's really fast, and the user interface is really familiar. I love the user interface on EM Client. I can't stress that enough. It looks very similar to Outlook or one of the earlier versions of, let's say Windows Live Mail. It's great. And if I want to, I can send an email. This is right now, it's syncing up to my doug@defeditsoftware.com email address. It has a chat function. It can sign into Google Chat. It can do other things. It can pull in your contacts from Google. It has a calendaring function, which I have yet to use, but it's a very efficient and very full-featured email client. And so I put it on my VM because I'll always have it up on here, so when I decide to power the VM on and go in and start working on something, I can pop open my email client. And realistically for me, I keep all of my to-do items in here in various folders, so I just pop one open and start working on it. And then also, if I start working on Cherwell, I'll have it email in and out of various inboxes in there as well, and it provides you a very efficient way of checking an inbox while you're on your VM if you have to work with that on Cherwell. So this is actually my new favorite email client regardless. Like on my main desktop, I'm kind of toying around with using this over Outlook just because of how fast it is and how little memory it uses. So again, if I go into Task Manager, I've got EM Client open. it's using 46 megabytes of RAM. That's nothing. So I like it for that. It uses very little resources, 40 megs and no processing while it's in the background. It's great. It has a really nice dinging sound when you get a notification that's very different than the one that you would have in Outlook or anywhere else. So it's very noticeable. It stands out. So that's all that I have for EM Client. It works very well if you want to test it out. Now, their website bothered me a little in that it's a free app, but it's a free trial. In that at first it says free download and then you install it and it says, hey, thanks for installing this. You've got a free trial. After the trial ends, you can have 2 accounts for free, and if you pay us, you can have as many accounts as you want. So it's fully, it's a fully featured free email client, but it limits you to 2 accounts unless you pay it. And that license structure wasn't immediately clear on the website when I downloaded it. But aside from that, I really enjoy it, and I'm going to have it on this VM for some time. Now, the next thing that I really want to talk about is SQL. So there's 2 things to my installation of SQL. One of them is I don't just have SQL Express installed, I actually have SQL Server Developer Edition. And if you open up SQL, or if you open up the Microsoft SQL download page, we'll look at what the differences are. So SQL Server Editions download. So when you go to the SQL Server download page for Microsoft, there's a couple of different versions. There's SQL Developer and there's SQL Express. Now, SQL Express is the option that you can use if you want a production SQL database that's free. It has a size limitation on databases. It doesn't come with all the free features, and I think you have to register for something as well to download it. SQL Server Developer Edition has every feature of every version of SQL, and it's also free, but it's only licensed for use as a development and test database in a non-production environment. That's perfect if you're setting up a dev environment for Cherwell. You get all of your features as far as full text and other SQL Server features you might need. You don't have a limit to your database size, and you don't run into any issues with how much memory it'll use. SQL Server Developer is a great version of SQL to install if you're setting up a dev environment, because you get the whole package and you have the closest possible scenario to emulating a SQL Server Enterprise environment, because you have all of those features when you install it, whereas you might have degraded performance on a SQL Server Express instance because of the limitations that are on it and configuring full text search and all that. So I use SQL Server 2017 Developer Edition. And the other thing is, more recently, I've decided to use Toad instead of SQL Server Management Studio. And the reason for this is just, it works a lot more quickly, I would say. And this goes back to what I was saying with Microsoft Office products, is just when I open it, it doesn't take forever for it to load. It has a couple of features that are really convenient. I like the IntelliSense on it, and I like the way that it'll automatically reconnect to a server, but you can see just how quickly it opens up. It's very fast, even for this little virtual machine. And I just don't have that kind of loading speed on any other machine that I have with SQL Server Management Studio. So it's a nice lightweight tool. I don't know offhand how much space SQL Server Management Studio uses, but I know that Toad for SQL Server uses 666 meg, and that's not very much. So if you need a SQL Management Studio on your dev VM, I would really at this point recommend Toad. It's worked out very well for me over the past week or so that I've had it, and I'm going to keep using it in the future. It's really convenient as far as the features that are on there. I don't think there's anything that you would miss from SQL Server that's not in there, and I think it has the option to connect to some other types of databases as well. So there's that. I'm going to see if there's anything else on here that I really want to talk about. Now, Papercut I have on this machine just because I've used it in the past. There's a YouTube video from Beyond 20 that explains how you can set up Papercut and use it on a dev environment as an SMTP server. And I like this if I'm not actually sending out real emails. Now, there's going to be instances where I use EM Client and I just send email from my email address to myself and filter it out to this Cherwell folder, and I'll just have Cherwell process that stuff. But Papercut's also a really good tool, and I'll try to put in a link to their video on this for actually just having a local email SMTP server without connecting it to a real account. You can just fire it off and it displays everything perfectly. You don't have to worry about like username and password. It's a really easy thing to set up on a dev environment, and it also doesn't require very much as far as space or resources. So if you have a really resource strapped virtual machine, PaperCut's a great email alternative as well. I mean, EM client uses up 340 meg, and for that disk space I think it's worth it. But if you really needed to cut back, PaperCut is also a great tool for testing out email on a dev environment. You know, browser, I kind of prefer Opera, and Notepad++ is kind of a must-have at this point. And lastly, if you create videos like I do or a couple of other channels out there do on a Cherwell environment, I would just say for a recording application, my favorite so far has actually just been Screencast-O-Matic. Now, I've actually seen a couple other people post little screen recordings using their free version on the Cherwell community site, and you can usually tell when someone's used the free version because it watermarks the bottom of it. In part, I like Screencast-O-Matic because they have a free version and you can test it out well before you ever make a purchase. But also, if you end up going to their premium versions, in addition to the features that you get on here, it's really cheap. So as far as a video editing studio goes, Screencast-O-Matic, the user interface, and it's a shame that I can't really show it on the screen because I'm using it to record, but the user interface is amazing. I can make changes that you might spend, you know, several minutes working through Adobe Premiere Pro in just a couple of seconds. It's really easy to add certain effects like transitions, blurs, you know, different effects to the timeline. You do have a timeline editor, but it doesn't have different vertical stacks. But overall, it's great. You know, you have a lot of pretty much any video editing feature your average person could come across when recording a screen or something. It's in there, and they have a lot of advanced features as well. And for me, actually this price I don't believe is accurate because when I purchased it, I went with the 36-month subscription where it's $36. And when you do that, you know, $36 for 3 years of a video recording tool, it's definitely worth it. I purchased the license that I have probably pretty close to 3 years ago, and I've really enjoyed it since. This is the tool that I use when I record all of these videos, and you'll notice by default it adds this little ring around my mouse, and it does a little thing anytime I click on something. And I've been asked before, how is that getting into your videos? I really like this tool. It's great. There's a lot of functionality in it, and I can't show it on this recording, but the sizing for it. Oh, actually I can. You can see that's the little dialogue that you get when you're about to record. You have a bunch of easy options for how you want to record the screen, and you can position it and set the size. The other thing is, the most amazing thing for me about this recorder is the files that it outputs are really small. So the actual file size is usually really small, like I could go several minutes and end up with a little MP4 that's 10, 20, 30 megabytes depending on how long my video is and what I'm doing on the screen. The quality that comes out, it's impeccable. I mean, you can see on our stream it's never low quality unless we recorded it intentionally at low quality. They have an option to directly publish to a YouTube channel, which I use, so it integrates with your YouTube channel and it'll just publish straight up to it, which is really, really useful. There's a couple of other features, but that's really overall the feature set to it. So if you want to check that one out, you can go to screencast-o-matic.com, and of course they have a free version. So if you just need to really quickly screen grab something, it watermarks it, but it can't be beat. I use this one a lot if I have to send in bug reports to Cherwell. So they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I love to send in an email with a short screen recording clip of something that I'm doing in my dev environment that's causing an error. So this is another great tool for that. And really, I'd say that's about it. Those are the biggest things that I would really like to see on a dev environment that I'm setting up. and so far I've been enjoying them very much. If you have any questions about this or any of our other videos, feel free to paste them in the comments section below. And if you have an idea for a video you'd like us to make, you can paste that in the comments section. And if you'd like to contact us, you can do so either via my email address, which is doug@defeditsoftware.com, or through our website, which is defeditsoftware.com. Thanks.